HOA sold my house while I vacationed. I came back to strangers living in my bedroom. Can you imagine leaving for a relaxing vacation, dreaming of sandy beaches and clear skies, only to return home and find strangers sleeping in your bed? For Michael, that nightmare became a horrifying reality, orchestrated by the very organization meant to protect his property. Michael had spent years meticulously restoring his charming bungalow in the exclusive, gated community of Azure Coast. Every antique fixture, every hand-laid tile, was a testament to his passion. So, when he finally booked a 2-week cruise to the Caribbean, he left with a light heart, confident his home was safe under the watchful eye of the Azure Coast Homeowners Association. His bliss was shattered the moment his taxi pulled up to his driveway. A U-Haul truck was parked out front, boxes piled on the lawn, and unfamiliar faces moved inside his living room. Panic seized him. He fumbled for his keys, but they wouldn't turn the lock. The lock had been changed. Then, a sleek black SUV pulled up, and out stepped Celeste Dubois, the notoriously iron-fisted president of the HOA. Celeste, with her impeccably tailored suit and an air of frosty superiority, surveyed the scene with a chillingly satisfied smile. "Ah, Mr. Miller. Back so soon," she purred, her voice dripping with condescension. "I trust you had a pleasant vacation. Though, frankly, you've overstayed your welcome." Michael stared, dumbfounded. "My welcome? This is my house, Celeste. What's going on?" Celeste merely raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "As of last Tuesday, Mr. Miller, this is our house. Or, more accurately, the property of its new owners, the Millicent family. The HOA acquired and sold your property due to your egregious violations." The main conflict hit him like a physical blow. Celeste had, under the guise of HOA authority, seized and sold his home while he was away, claiming violations that were utterly baseless. Her self-importance was a terrifying force, capable of destroying lives with a pen stroke. Michael felt a surge of cold fury. "Violations? I've paid every due, followed every rule. What are you talking about?" Celeste's smile widened, devoid of warmth. "Your property, Mr. Miller, was deemed a blight on the community's aesthetic integrity. Your antique fixtures, your eclectic garden. It simply didn't align with Azure Coast's refined standards. Furthermore, your prolonged absence was a clear breach of the occupancy clause in our bylaws. We attempted to contact you, of course." She held up a single, crumpled notice. "When you failed to respond, the board, under my guidance, initiated the repossession and sale. It was all perfectly legal, per our revised bylaws." Her tone reeked of self-righteousness, her eyes gleaming with an almost perverse satisfaction. She saw him as a stain on her perfect canvas, and she'd eradicated him without a second thought. Michael, reeling, tried to process the audacity. He called his lawyer immediately, then stormed into the HOA office, demanding answers. They showed him a stack of fabricated notices, claims of unpaid fines for unapproved landscaping and unsightly exterior decor, fines he'd never received, for issues that didn't exist. He tried to explain he was out of the country, that any notices sent to his home would have gone unread. But Celeste merely shrugged, repeating her mantra of legal process and board consensus. His pleas for reason were met with a wall of bureaucratic indifference, fueled by Celeste's unyielding malice. While Michael battled the legal labyrinth, the true nature of Celeste's treachery began to unfold. One evening, frustrated and heartbroken, he drove back to his street, parking down the block from his former home. He saw the new owners, the Millicents, clearly uncomfortable, standing outside. He felt a pang of sympathy for them, caught in this cruel absurdity. Just then, he noticed a familiar figure lurking in the shadows of the adjacent house. It was a local private investigator, Frank Maxwell, whom Michael had hired weeks ago, not for the HOA issue, but to look into a series of strange, minor incidents around his property that had preceded his trip. A faint smell of chemicals near his rose bushes, a small, unusual scuff mark on his gate. Maxwell, seeing Michael, waved him over. "Mr. Miller, I've got something. Remember those strange chemical traces by your roses?" He held up a small device. "I installed a tiny motion-activated camera near your gate. And look," he played a video. The footage showed Celeste, late at night, meticulously spraying a clear liquid onto Michael's prized antique rose bushes, the very roses that had begun to mysteriously wither just before his trip. Then, she moved to his front door, applying a dark, viscous substance to his doorframe, making it appear as though the wood was rotting, the very unsightly decor she had later cited as a violation. The twist was sickening. Celeste hadn't just claimed his property was a blight. She had actively, deliberately sabotaged it to create the violations that justified her taking his home. But the revelations didn't stop there. As Maxwell continued to review his surveillance, another, far more sinister plot began to emerge. The HOA's revised bylaws that Celeste kept citing had been pushed through under her singular authority, and they included a clause allowing for rapid repossession and sale of properties deemed non-compliant. This clause had been used not just against Michael, but against other residents, often elderly or temporarily absent, whose properties were in desirable locations. Celeste, it turned out, was secretly colluding with a shadowy real estate investment firm, Prime Coast Holdings, owned by her estranged brother-in-law, to acquire properties below market value through these illegal seizures. Her actions weren't just about Michael's home. They were part of a systemic, fraudulent scheme to enrich herself and her associates by dispossessing unsuspecting homeowners. This crime was far larger, affecting numerous families and betraying the trust of an entire community. The public confrontation happened at the annual HOA General Meeting, called to address the growing unrest caused by Michael's displaced situation. Celeste, poised and confident, began her usual spiel about maintaining community standards. "While we understand Mr. Miller's distress," she announced, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "the board acted entirely within its legal rights." Just as she concluded, Michael, with Frank Maxwell by his side, stood up, holding his tablet high. "Celeste," he stated, his voice resonating with newfound strength, "your legal rights just ran out." He projected the video evidence of her sabotage onto the large screen. The gasps from the audience were palpable. Celeste's perfectly composed face fractured, a flicker of raw panic in her eyes. That's in fabrication. Slander," she shrieked, her voice losing its composure. "He's trying to ruin my reputation." But before she could launch into her usual tirade, the doors at the back of the room swung open. A team of stern-faced FBI agents, led by Special Agent Davies, walked in. Their presence sent a shockwave through the room. Special Agent Davies strode directly to the podium, holding up a federal warrant. "Celeste Dubois," she announced, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "You are under arrest for multiple counts of wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and grand larceny. Your scheme to illegally seize and sell properties, in collusion with Prime Coast Holdings, has been under investigation for months." She then gestured to the projector screen. "This video, while compelling, is just a fraction of the evidence we've collected against you." Celeste's face completely crumbled. Her elegant facade shattered, revealing a terrified, desperate woman. Her eyes darted wildly, her lips trembling, unable to form a coherent thought. The illusion of her power, her untouchability, vanished in an instant. Special Agent Davies then revealed the deeper truth. Ms. Dubois's motivation was primarily financial greed, but also a deeply rooted insecurity. Her family has a history of financial instability, and she'd been using these illegal schemes to project an image of success and control to cover up past failures and to gain influence within the community. The revelation wasn't an excuse, but it provided a stark, unsettling glimpse into the fragile ego that fueled her destructive actions. The downfall was spectacular and absolute. Celeste was immediately taken into custody. The revelations of her vast, predatory scheme made national headlines. Numerous other victims, emboldened by Michael's courage, came forward with their own stories of suspicious property seizures and unexplained fines. Prime Coast Holdings was raided, its assets frozen, and Celeste's brother-in-law was also arrested. Her carefully curated life, her social events, her charity work, her position of power within the HOA dissolved in a torrent of public condemnation. The few board members who had blindly supported her or benefited from her schemes were forced to resign in disgrace. Celeste faced decades in prison, massive fines, and a complete loss of all her ill-gotten gains. Her reputation was irrevocably destroyed, her name synonymous with deceit and avarice. The life she had meticulously crafted built on lies and the exploitation of others, disintegrated. The karma, precise and unyielding, ensured she lost the very status and wealth she craved. Michael eventually got his house back, though the legal battle was long and arduous. He felt a sense of profound relief, a quiet satisfaction that justice had been served. But the experience left a permanent scar. He had survived the shock, the betrayal, and the fight. He had exposed a predator lurking in plain sight. But the cost, the emotional toll, the violation of his sanctuary was immense. This chilling story forces us to ask, how much power should an HOA wield over individual property rights? And when does the desire for control and perceived perfection cross into a dangerous realm of calculated deceit and criminal exploitation?